That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Wilsey, bringing over 15 years of ed tech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome back to The Pulse. We are live at the NAGAP GEM Summit, and I am sitting with Spenser Smith, the Director of Admissions for Graduate Business Programs at the Haslam College of Business at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Whew, that was a mouthful. Spenser, how are you doing this morning? And give our listeners a little more background about you.
Absolutely. Doing wonderfully. The conference has been just phenomenal for getting new ideas as we go along. And so yeah, I'm currently Director of Admissions over Haslam's graduate business programs, so full-time MBA and our kind of suite of masters, our specialty master's programs. In the past, I've worked in the private liberal arts admission space on the undergraduate side. I worked a little bit in the public undergrad admissions side before I came to Haslam, and now I'm in the public graduate side of things. So kind of a myriad of experiences that hopefully helps give me a competitive advantage, but we'll see one day.
And you're pretty involved with NAGAP too, right?
Yes. So I'm new to NAGAP. So I new to the graduate space. I've been in my role about a year and actually learned about NAGAP a few months ago. Joined up and then was able to get involved in the Southeast chapter. Ended up getting on the board as their treasurer. So it's been a quick involvement, but a good one.
Amazing. So you've certainly been in higher ed for quite some time. So I'm curious, when that Supreme Court decision came out last summer around affirmative action, what was your reaction to that?
Absolutely. And I'd been in my job, I think right under 90 days. And so I was like, oh, this is new. And so, for me, we quickly just kind of talked about, the core pillars of not only the Haslam College, but my team is all about including everyone and creating a space for everyone and making everyone feel like they belong. And we already do that. So how do we do that in a kind of post-decision world here? And, we always have the mentality of no one decision is ever going to decide your admission status. So we were to kind of take that and build upon it with kind of how we have implemented a rebranded holistic admission review.
I'm sure that a revamped process to making decisions on applicants did not happen overnight. So talk me through the decision making and the process that you went through when you evaluated what was currently in place and how that needed to change.
Absolutely. And it looks vastly different than it did even 6 months ago, nonetheless a year. So I lead the MBA, I'll use it as an example because that's kind of our flagship master's program. I lead an admissions committee of 8 individuals. So it's myself, a couple of my team, and then we have representatives from Career Development Office, the Alumni Office, and the Student Services Office. And we all get around the table and look at students wholly and go through them. And so in the past, these meetings typically we try to stay an hour, but we'll get into some good conversations. We look up, we're all late to our next meetings. I'll go about 2 hours. And so we we would do the interview and admissions, and we would bring kind of this fact sheet about what we've learned about the students, right? Here's their academic qualities. Here's their career stuff. Let's throw their resume up on the screen. Let's dive through it. And admissions was bringing everything to the table at the meeting. And it allowed us to really go in depth, but occasionally it would kind of slow us down. And so we've been starting to grow in our application numbers. And so I was thinking of how do we maintain this high level of integrity, this high level of ethical decision making, but also process more students quicker. Because we try to tell students when they interview, we're going to have you a decision and your scholarship package within 2 weeks. In an ideal world, right?
Wow.
I'd like to say we try to follow that at all times. I'm sure there is a student out there that's like, it's been 3 weeks. Anyways. And so what we do now is we didn't have a formal rubric in place. We kind of had it was like our unofficial guides. And so what I wanted to do was bring in a way that everyone's voices on the committee can be heard at a level point. And, admissions has more context by default. I was like, I don't want us to sway this conversation just because we've had more exposure. And what we did is a colleague of mine in another unit at the university, we kind of get together once a month and share ideas. And he talked about this research rubric they had. And I said, can you share that with me? And what I did is I kind of scrapped the research part and built it around an MBA program. And we took influence from kind of how the various organizations such as U.S. News consider, hey, career, great outcome. This is really important, and how they would weight GPA and the conversations around test scores. And that was our starting point. And so the way it kind of operates is we have this big Excel sheet, basically, that all the committee members will go in. They get to review the applications. I was able to get them access to our slate system, and they review the applicants ahead of time. They put in their rankings from 1 to 3. It comes over to my spreadsheet where I average out everybody's responses and then run it through my weighted formula. And it spits out a number between 1 and 3. And we've guided our committee that, yes, it's going to give us a pretty clear picture of how we view that student, how we feel like we can make that student successful, but that's only our guiding point. And then we will begin to talk about all those intangibles of, giving back to the community and being involved. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is access for all to higher ed. I've kind of based my entire career around that because I grew up in a very rural area in Appalachia. College literacy was just very low in my area. And I know there's a lot of different paths and a lot of different barriers folks face. So I was trying to think of how can I get the most barriers out of the way. And what we were able to do is we have our typical formula that we use to get that number between 1 and 3. I've created an alternate formula that relies on qualitative data. We'll look at the essays, and I tell my committee, if we see examples of overcoming adversity, perseverance, resilience, or anything along the lines of barriers to entry, if we agree as a committee, we'll put it into a new ranking system where we increase the weight of those stories and we slightly bring down the weight of everything else, and in hopes that levels the playing field a little bit, right? And so it's so far has been great. I mean, the demographics of our cohort so far, we're still building, shameless plug, a full-time MBA, but we're still building our cohort because we're rolling admissions. We'll go till it's full. And our demographics are up across the board, which we're really happy about. I think we're sitting right around 23% underrepresented students, which I'm very happy about. I think we're up from 11 or 12% last year this time. So it seems to be working. I'll get there a full year or two, then check back in. But yeah.
This is an incredibly thoughtful process. Like, kudos to you for recognizing the need to make these changes and bringing in such varied voices into the decision making. I have to imagine you've also found ways to connect this back to the university's brand values.
Absolutely.
What are you doing there?
Absolutely. So University of Tennessee as a whole, right, we kind of talked about my individual college's values, but the institution as a whole, if you go to our website, you'll see these phrases like the torchbearer, right? We have a statue on campus of a guy holding a torch, and it's lit 24/7. And we have this creed, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't think I'll get it right, but it's, one who beareth a torch cast a shadow on themselves so that others can have light. And that is kind of this mentality we operate on of we have a purely qualitative review section that my committee members will put their feedback in kind of as they deem, called the volunteer spirit. It's how do they fit our core values, and how can we use that to elevate them in their careers, whether that be corporate, nonprofit, insert outcome here. And we've really tried to lean into that branding all the way down to our essay questions. We've been rephrasing them to bring in the volunteer spirit and those core values in everything that we do. And so it's been cool to see in real time. We're making these changes and we're seeing responses out of applicants of like, thank you for making me feel a part of this. And we try to make it a pretty close, tight-knit group because we only bring in 50 people from across the world for our MBA. And so they're going to spend a lot of time together. So we try to set that tone early and all the way into our curriculum. Our student services director, she's phenomenal. Her name's Laura. They do this project called the Torchbearer Project. And we split them into case competition style teams. They find a local nonprofit. They go in and work with them for 2-ish, 3-ish months. Then they have to come back and report, and they give them a recommendation plan for the future. So not just going in, doing a few things for some pictures and then leaving. They go in, they assess, they help where they can, and they say, hey, here's what we would recommend. And so we're bringing these really talented individuals and plugging them into the local community right away. And so that's been really cool. That's been one of my absolute favorite things about our program.
Wow. Spenser, have you gotten any pushback on the changes to this process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Change is hard. I'm new. I came in, I said, I'm going to spend my first 3 months learning and watching, and then I ended up making a scholarship policy change in 30 days. Thankfully, everybody agreed with it. But I'm fortunate to work around individuals who share a lot of my values of we're all really passionate about what we do. And we're in the field we're in because of that. And so I kind of brought this idea forward thinking this is a huge change in process. I'm asking my committee to add more time outside of our normal review meetings. They'll spend an hour or two going through and reviewing and putting their numbers in. And it was unanimous across the board. Absolutely, we'll do this. And it has been kind of a resounding, we love this. We love what we're building. Let's keep building on it. And how do we implement it in a way that it becomes exceptionally sustainable? And so I've been really fortunate because it's always a concern. Change is hard. I'm someone who is a creature of habit. I get it.
It'll be really interesting to evaluate on the other side where there may be some efficiencies that you can build in. I suspect you'll probably debrief this with a number of the committee members who have seen the before and after. But Spenser, you've got an open invite to come back on a Pulse episode because knowing this is your first time going through it, I can't wait to hear about the outcomes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Wonderful. Spenser, I know you've got to get back to this busy summit. Thanks for sitting down and chatting with me. If folks want to find you after listening to this episode, where can they do that?
Absolutely. I'm super active on LinkedIn. It's a good way to reach me. And then my email is very simple. It's my first name, though I do spell it differently. It's SPENSER@utk.edu. That's it.
Love it.
So it's nice. Having a unique name means I can just use that.
Awesome. Well, folks, you should definitely connect with Spenser to find out more insights to this new holistic admissions process and his rubric. Appreciate you sitting down, Spenser. And with that, we'll see you next time. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.